Thank you, Terry.
Yes. Put the state on this day. Yes.
I was just asking. For an appointment, you actually have the mission to advertise.
Yeah, no, you're just going to say, we're just going to do it until we announce it. We're going to have to, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, but it would be, but we would have to. We know? Oh, okay.
But it's okay if you can. Highway route. You want it? No.
No.
It's procedural, it's procedural, just, you know.
Beautiful. I'm trying to compare because they said this is a new one with different language. And I didn't really see it.
Your ordinance is different. All the others. Bristol County, that's why
In fact, the first one we received.
I know, but that was only that rare aspect. It wasn't.
Yeah.
If you look at their ordinance, it's different than yours. It's not, you know, it's like, you have extra stuff in yours, you have more stuff in yours. What happens, Sherry says, as well. She misses it, like, you know, big deals, but.
Yeah.
Just.
Oh, correct. All kinds of things.
Sometimes a lot of places wrong.
I don't see it. I don't see any difference here except for the fact that we changed it. That's why we changed it.
Yes. It's good to get back.
Tim, are we doing anything with the ACs tonight? Appointments? No.
Did you get out?
Yes.
One. I'd rather just.
Other two are not, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know?
I just took it.
Who's on the Zoom call?
Virginia?
Let's see. We have Mike Yeager, Scott Holbert, Scott Robinson, Virginia, and Justin Bowers. And there's somebody,
Okay, all right.
I guess Virginia's connected on the phone as well.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so I'm going to open the Borough of Morrisville Borough Council meeting for Monday, June 21st, 2021. Can we please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Virginia, can you do a roll call?
Yes, I will. Mayor Rivella? Mr. Bowers?
Here.
Ms. Alahu?
Here.
Mr. Nickel?
Mr. Nichols had stated that due to his employment, actually being sent to a different area, he wouldn't be able to make it back to the borough in time.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Paul?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Here.
Mr. Yeager?
Here.
Mr. Flager?
Present.
All right. Okay, thank you.
I think Scott Holbert is here also.
Yes.
Oh, is he Zooming?
Yes, I'm here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. I just want to let the public know that prior to this meeting, we had an executive session for personnel matters. All right, we're going to move on to item 4, which is announcements and presentations. 4A, public services. I don't believe they are here tonight. Kind of disappointed with that one. And go ahead, Virginia.
Attending. I'm sorry. They were supposed to be attending this evening.
All right.
Ted,
All right, we'll have to.
this is Justin. Just a point of order. I think you should probably announce that we held executive session 2 weeks ago as well for interviews.
Good point. We also had a executive session 2 weeks ago for interviews, which I'll get into in a moment. All right, moving on to 4B. We have a proclamation designating June 2021 as LGBTQ Pride Month. And I'll read the proclamation. It's whereas the month of June is historically recognized as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ Pride Month in commemoration of the riots beginning June 28th, 1969 at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. And whereas the nation was founded on the ideals that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and all human beings are born free and equal. And whereas LGBTQ individuals have had immeasurable impact on the cultural, civic, and economic success of our country, and whereas structural inequities and discrimination continue to oppress the LGBTQ community, and particularly the LGBTQ people of color. And whereas the Borough of Morrisville is committed to supporting visibility and dignity and equity of LGBTQ living in, working in our community. And whereas celebration of the Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the LGBTQ community, and is an equal opportunity to engage in dialogue that builds acceptance, advances equal rights, and seeks to end social inequities. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Borough Council of Morrisville, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, hereby recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2021 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQ community, and proclaimed, adopted, and approved this 21st day of June 2021 in council chambers.
I have a question.
Sure.
It says here that you signed it and the mayor signs it. Is the mayor signing his things? Because he doesn't come to meetings, so is he signing things?
It would be presented to him to sign that.
Okay.
Okay, under announcements, I just wanted, I thought we didn't need to vote on it. Oh, okay. I thought Scott said we didn't have to.
I think everyone's going to be on the web.
Okay. Can I have a motion for the proclamation?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Oh, sorry. Any questions from the public? It's been a long time, and it's my first proclamation. Sorry, so
You'll never forget it.
and I understand why Dave stumbles over the words. Okay, so no comment from the public. Can we do a roll call, please?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Okay. Proclamation passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, under announcements, I guess I'll announce at this point that, as I just said before, we had an executive session 2 weeks ago doing interviews. There's been, I believe, 2 rounds of interviews and then some initial review of resumes and stuff like that. But I'd like to announce to the public that we have a tentative agreement for an individual for the position of borough manager. No more detailing. That's enough? That's fine. As soon as we have a contract and a signed contract, we'll provide more information.
We're looking for August, right, for her to start, that person to start?
Yes.
Just letting the public know.
Yeah, she needed 30 days for her current employer. All right.
She's also undergoing a standard background check.
Yes.
Too.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5, public comment. It's all right. Well, yeah, sign it for, oh, you signed it?
I signed it, I'm
Okay.
the only one.
Did you wish to speak?
Yes.
Okay, just fill it out for the record, that's also.
Yes. Sorry, I was unaware of that. Thank you.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. Just state your name and address and
Certainly.
we'll be a little.
Nice to see people here and to be here with you. Okay, John?
Yeah, I live better.
Okay. Jane Berger, 90 West Maple Avenue, Morrisville. Exciting news. I know it's been a difficult time, but to hear that we will have a manager very soon is really great news, because I know you all are anxious for that. Couple of things. There's a motion to approve the increase in the TAN fund, which is great after all those years. It probably needs more money. I was just wondering where those additional funds were coming from, because the original TAN was set up only with the proceeds from the sale of the annex building, which houses the county district court. So I was just wondering, I'm glad you got the money to increase. I was just curious as to where it was coming from. I'm also here wearing my hat as secretary for the Morrisville Business Association. And as I mentioned briefly last month, we are planning to bring the car show back to Bridge Street in September. And with all the fluffy and all the things that are dealing with, I think the motion was overlooked for tonight's agenda. I did provide the council president with a copy of a motion that's for your consideration, and also from the minutes from 2019 and 2020. I think each time that's come up, it's been added at last minute after the other agenda was printed out. So I would look forward to the borough's support of this event. You're not a co-sponsor, you're not financially committed, as you were not before. The MBA will assume all costs, but because it is involving a closure of the state highway in Morrisville, it is important to know that you support us during this event. So thank you very much.
May I ask what the date is?
Certainly, September 18th, which is Saturday, and the rain date is September 19th.
Which is the date of the Jazz Fest?
And what time is your jazz festival? Because we're in the morning.
It'll be in the evening.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a good lead-in to keep people in town.
That's
Right.
right.
It's called, let's call it cross-marketing.
There
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Right.
I was going to make an announcement at the end, but I'd like to say it now since you're here. I'd like to say thank you to the Business Association for providing the beautiful bouquet down at the Robert Morris Plaza, just in time for the parade, for the Memorial
Thank
Day
you.
parade.
We'll do that. And
Very
we're
pretty.
hoping to do something for fall and then again for the December holidays.
Thank you.
So it's something that we can do to help. I appreciate your support and acknowledgement. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sherlock.
Mhm.
The car show is from 9 to 1:30, but the hours from 8 to 9 because they need an hour for everybody to come in and get registered. So we figure they'll come see the car show and they'll segue over to the park for the jazz concert.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. And we usually have a table down there for nonprofits or any of our business organizations to put anything out. I'll send more information on that, but we'll certainly be glad to have something down on Bridge Street about the Jazz Fest.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to add that as item 9I. So just so if anybody wants to make a comment about that during public comment. But, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but you're next, yes. Just state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Nice to see you all in person. My name is Joshua Kuntz. I live right over there, 40 Union Street, apartment 3. I haven't been around in a couple months just because it's been a couple tough months. First off, a kind of like tangent from like what I actually want to speak about. I was on the path dividing the river from the park this morning, and there's like a turtle up there, and it was like hilarious. I was seeing several runners, and they're all like, "How did turtle get up here?" And so I was like following it around, make sure I was like safe and stuff. And apparently, there's like a part of the rockway that's a little bit smoothed over, and it found a way to crawl up from the river. There's some like very impressive turtle. So good for the little guy.
Was that a dike or a canal?
The dike. Yeah. Although, I mean, the canal is obviously like full of lovely turtles, especially further north and stuff.
I walk the dike and I see turtles in the river.
It is weird to think that they got that high. My girlfriend ran to go get a box because she was certain that it wasn't supposed to be there. And I was like, okay, I'll stay by and just like watching it like crawl around and find its way back down, which is great. The second part I'd like to kind of talk about more seriously, which is both, I've spoken to the council before via Zoom or whatever the medium was. I believe it was Zoom. Yeah. And there is obviously I have spoken on behalf of concerns for the park. I've been a part of and discussing things with the Save Williamson Park movement. I know that there is a lot of tension around the topic. And I've since, even in a discussion, I've called you out, Ted, once, and I wanted to actually formally apologize about that. I can understand that it's a very stressful job or position that any of us are in. And one of the biggest things in our society right now that most of us are suffering from in the information age is how to counter the information age and the different things that it has impact on all of us, socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Everybody's familiar now with the ideas of social bubbles, with higher partisanship within political discourse. And that's not even to say that people actually disagree with each other, just that we aren't communicating effectively anymore. And I think, I mean, this might just be my perspective, but I do think that it is because there's like no such thing as a community on a low scale. We hear things about wars on the nation state. We hear things about large scale movements and local politics, which is about people knowing each other. It's supposed to be about local communities, has been kind of lost in the volume of other things being said. And so part of the reason why I want to apologize is because though that is also the rhetoric I am hearing, that primes my mind as well. And I would imagine that all of us get into that and we're no longer paying attention to the fact that we live together and we're quite close and that we can be actually quite personal about these things. And so, I might be coming at this from a perspective of like, we're losing our environment, global warming is happening, and here's my time, here's my space to try to do whatever little I can. And to anybody else who's like, listen, I'm just trying to see how things are panning out. There's a business guy who's looking to do this thing. And to me, I'm like, red flag. But to them, it's like, this guy looks like he's crazy. It is like, why is this being dealt with like a red flag? This isn't the army coming in. This isn't like, trying to just do something to spite these people or whatever. And so the emotionality of all of us are obviously primed by almost different worlds, different contexts, because we're all isolated, individualized due to the miracle of capitalism and consumerism of America. Not to like tip my hand a little bit, but like we've all self-isolated because we can. We have our own TV shows. We have our own things and tastes that we like. But what that does is it makes us in our own bubbles, and it makes it harder, and it makes every individual have to put more work into reaching out to one another. And I wanted to try to emphasize on the fact that I don't view myself as anybody's enemy. I am trying to get rid of any presumptions or any of the first impressions maybe people have had about me, that might then make it harder for them to hear where I am coming from in a lot of these things and how much I do care about all of these different things, right? That they won't be seeing me as an enemy anymore, but just as another person of the community that is trying to vocalize things as a friend. Because ultimately, I do want everybody, like, that's the utopia. I want to be everybody's friend. I'm not trying to be a liar. I'm not trying to be inauthentic. I'm not a grifter. Like, these things are, to me, philosophically unappealing. They're not the wise way. But the wise way is more work.
You're over 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you.
You can finish up if you have.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of restate that I would like to continue, obviously, getting to know everybody here and start to try to reforge possibly a better and promote. There we go. Promote a better dialogue about this kind of touchy and sensitive topic around Williamson Park, because I know that even though it's a little bit in the future and it's nothing's sealed now, we as humans like to look into the future, and so obviously we're going to be trying to come at it with our compassion and our wisdom when we can. And so I hope that intention and spirit of trying to open dialogue to be more communal and compassionate with everybody is heard and felt. And thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close that public comment. We're going to move on to item 6, which is approval of the minutes. 6A, approval of the minutes for the Borough Council regular meeting of April 19th, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Ted, this is Justin. My only comment is, why are we back to 40 pages of meeting minutes again? I thought we had agreed that these were going to be abbreviated, especially since the videos are available online.
I couldn't answer that one myself. But
I believe it's because Scott used to edit them. So when the new borough manager comes in, I guess.
Right, we'll add it to the list of things we'll have to address with the new manager. Any other comments?
Could I ask that we add what since the video is available, that the URL is added to these minutes? To the borough meeting minutes, so that people know where to go to get, if they needed to.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. We can do that. All right. Anyone else?
I would just suggest putting the website on there, because nobody's going to actually write down the URL for each individual meeting video individually.
Well, you could do a tiny URL if you wanted to, and that would be simple to do.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Whatever works. Whatever is the easiest to get whoever's trying to get to the actual video. We'll do that on the minutes. All right. Anyone else? And then, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Yep, 7-0. 6B, approval of the minutes for the Borough Council regular meeting of May 17th, 2021.
I don't think we have them, do we?
I don't know what's on here.
We never got them. Or
Kenya?
I didn't.
You haven't gotten the May ones? All right,
Not
let me
the
double
May.
check in the folders. Okay. And let me double check in the folders. We thought that they had gone out, but I'll double check.
So they'll have to wait anyway.
Yes, if you haven't received them, certainly, yes, I could put those on the July agenda.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to withdraw the motion for 6B until July. All right, moving on to 7, finance. 7A, the treasurer's report. Everyone should have gotten that in their packets. 7B, call for a motion to approve the bill list. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All right.
Actually, I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wade's not here. This is for Gilmore. I was just curious as to, excuse me, what exactly is being done with regards to the flood protection grant? I mean, that bill this month was $51,000. And each month that's twice as much as it normally is, but what exactly, if we could get a more detail about what's happening in the future, please.
All right, we'll actually ask for an update from the engineer. I'll ask the borough manager to go ahead and request that. Anyone else? All right, roll call, please, Virginia.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Salaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. All right, we're going to move on to reports. 8A is the mayor's report. The mayor's not present, so we'll move on to 8B, police chief's report. Chief?
Okay, a few subjects this month. Right after our last meeting, we had a shooting down on Harrison Street. That was more of a boyfriend-girlfriend shooting. So it was everybody was all connected. We made that apprehension very quickly of the male. He is still in jail, and he is in jail on no bail. There was another bad crime that people have seen, that we had a rape. That was also a known doer. So there was no danger to the public whatsoever. Our lounges, I hate to say it, have been quiet. But they have been quiet the last few weekends. We've been paying a lot of attention to them. New crime that's out there are catalytic converters. Not a whole lot we can do about it right now, but it is something that is spread nationwide. But in the last week, we've had 2 older model big Ford vans stolen out of driveways, driven around the corner, and they cut the catalytic converter off there. Catalytic converters are worth more than most of these vehicles were. So we are keeping an eye. We've worked with Falls and Tullytown. We've locked up some people, but it's just it's a big business right now. Our crime rate's still down 37% from last year. I'm still very happy about that. And last, I appreciate that you extended that 60-hour rule to be able to hire part-timers more. It's going to be a long, hot summer, and I need all the help I can get. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, can I ask a couple questions? 4th of July is coming up. Can you remind the public what the firework policy is and what they could face if the police apprehend them shooting them off?
Well, it is a state law. I have sent emails to our council president. He knows about the outrage of a lot of the citizens. I went out and saw some of the citizens, but the state law is that you have to be more than 150 yards away from any building, which is very hard in our borough to do that. So I will put the law up on our Facebook page.
And if a resident is caught shooting fireworks within those 150 yards, what is the ramifications?
It's a fine through our local courts.
Okay. Do you know what that amount is? I'm just trying to warn residents because
it's substantial. It's maybe $300, $400, $500.
Okay. Because there's a lot being done, like the fireworks being shut off on Hill Street down in the Manor. So a lot of residents have been complaining to me. So I just want to warn.
The problem is that we'll get a phone call through 911. It'll say fireworks in the area, wherever. But we get there and they're really not there. So anytime someone calls 911, I would like them to say, I live at such and such. Please come over to my house and I'll point out to you where they are.
Okay. We
get the general vicinity and we're searching. By the time we search and we find, they're usually gone. Mm-hmm. So we're all about it. If we catch them, we're finding them.
Okay. And the hotel, I know a couple of months ago, I had told you that the guy from that hotel, Raj, he had such a problem when the fireworks store is in operation for the 4th. Were you able to get in touch with him, or do you have any?
He has never spoken to me.
Okay,
Never spoken to me.
okay. Do we have something in place to monitor the excess traffic in that fireworks store?
We've never had, this has never been discussed with either owners of those two buildings. So if there's an issue, they need to contact us and we'll work it out. But like I said, we haven't heard from them. And there hasn't been any trials over there today on my bike. There was maybe 10 cars in the Quality Inn parking lot and 10 cars in the other lot. I know there's a couple of days that it does get crowded, but you know, he's got to call me, you know, and talk to me.
Okay. Mr. Parker?
Yes.
I was going to bring, if the chief would wait just one moment. I know the state law is 150 feet, but this is for the attorney. Are we able to amend our local ordinance to make it, 100 feet?
It's got to be stricter, probably not.
Yeah.
More lenient.
No, it's feet. I was going to mention that it's feet, not.
Right.
The microphone?
Oh,
Might not be on her.
I'm sorry. It's been a while out of practice. Yeah. The law is 100. I think the chief meant to say that. He knows the law. It's 150 feet.
Right.
And that's the state law. So you're not going to be able to.
You can't change it.
No. But the thing is,
You can make it more stricter.
Right,
You
here's
just
the
can't make it
thing, we
less
can do-
stricter.
Yeah, we can
I
make,
want to make it stricter.
yeah, but
No, you're making it more lenient if you're saying 100.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. The wrong direction.
I'm just saying it's hard to shoot anything with 150 feet in this borough.
There's only a couple places
I
that's.
mean, there's no, you can really legally shoot it. The problem is, the chief is correct. The problem is, and we've had this in all the townships and all the municipalities, all the boroughs, they're gone by the time the
Right.
police get there, and all they find is a bunch of burnt up fireworks.
Which leads me to the second thing I was going to mention to the public that's out there. Some of them are afraid, as you probably said, they just said it's in the area or they don't exactly know. I'm encouraging people, if you know that your neighbor 2 doors down is doing this, please call. I mean, to pinpoint it better.
Yes.
But I know.
I think a lot of people just don't know where it's coming from, and with the
That's true.
the quality of these fireworks that are out there now, you can set something off 2 blocks away, and it feels like it's in your living room.
Correct.
So it's a tough thing to point out, and it's, you know, for the people that have dogs and things like that, it's a bad night, and they're setting them off at midnight.
They were off midnight last night, and
I don't understand it.
People have said that they were medicating their dogs.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's terrible.
Well, and also the potential for setting a house on fire in your neighborhood.
Right.
It's great.
Just as an aside, right?
As an aside.
Yes, because we do have trees. So I'm still, I'm imploring the public to please, help the police identify where they exactly are.
Just be a good neighbor and don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah. Right.
And we haven't even gotten to the 4th of July yet, so.
No, we haven't. All right, thank
Is
you.
that it, Chief? Thank you. All right. Moving on to 8C, a manager's report. Do you have one, Micah?
Not at this time, no. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to 8D, committee reports. Mr. Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to give an update on the Special Little League Committee that I'm chairing along with Mike Yeager and Dwayne Nicole. On June 2nd, the three of us plus Ted Parker and Micah Heights met with Jim O'Brien, the president of Morrisville Little League. We went over the old agreement that expired 2 years ago and talked about how the terms for renewal. We exchanged some ideas. We're not in complete agreement, but I think at this point, the committee working with Ted and Micah will propose we'll make a counteroffer to Little League. And once we reach a consensus with Mr. O'Brien and his people over there, we'll submit a final agreement to council for approval, hopefully by the next meeting.
Thanks, Bob.
Any questions?
Just to clarify, I don't believe that it ran out 2 years ago. I believe we had a 3-year contract that ends, or MOU that ends this year. But I could be wrong.
Fair enough. Yeah, it at least lasted through last year, I guess. Yeah. And but in any case, it's outdated, and we need to renew it anyway. So we're going to work out something that will be automatically renewable probably in the future, so we don't have this problem again. And it'll be subject to certain contingencies, such as if the development project goes forward and things like that. But in any case, we'll give you more detail once we work out the terms with Little League, and we obviously won't move forward without formal approval from the council.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Can we take a question? I'm sorry.
Not from the.
No, sorry.
All right. Does anyone else on council have a committee report?
Real quick, Ted, the Civil Service Committee, we met 2 weeks ago, and we're in the starting the process of looking into hiring 2 more police officers. We have the consortium was done a month ago. We have the consortium list, and so it's just a process. If anyone knows anyone that's interested, that recently took the consortium, have them apply at Borough Hall. The deadline to apply is June 30th. So we have another week and a half to apply for one of those positions.
Scott, will there be meeting minutes distributed to council?
Say again?
Will there be meeting minutes distributed?
Yes, yes, there will be. We have to get the minutes put together. One of the people in the committee, Barb Bauer. She's currently on vacation right now until the 27th. So we're kind of stuck right now with that was with that vacation. But we'll have everything together for the July meeting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. We're going to move on to action items. 9A, call for a motion to approve resubmitting the application in the amount of $454,823 for the automated red light enforcement program grant through PennDOT for Pennsylvania Avenue and Philadelphia Avenue. Intersection upfront cost to reapply $2,500 to $3,000. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
So this is a grant that we had applied for before when Mr. Mitchell was here and we were declined, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, so why is it $3,000 to reapply? Do we know why? That seems a little excessive.
Wish the engineer was here to clarify, but there's, go ahead.
In the past.
Somebody can explain it.
Yeah, in the past, the answer has always been there are some items that need to be updated, obviously, from a date perspective. Right. In some cases, it's a new form that needs to be filled out. So although it can be cut and paste for the most part, so it doesn't cost as much. And there's sometimes there's a cost just to apply. And they're just giving us an example of what the cost may be overall. But there's always some fee involved. I mean, it's just there's always something.
Yeah, it just seems like it would be the same info to me, and that just seems a little high for that. But I don't know. Maybe the engineer can give us more data when he's providing this to us.
I agree. Maybe a breakdown. I mean, if there's a fee of $1,000, I can understand it, but if the application fee is not that high, then, and we've asked this question before, and I think that they felt that the $250 to $3,000 or $2,500 to $3,000 was actually a good number in their mind, which I still think is a little high. I agree with Helen.
All right. So I can add that to the questions that we want answered by the engineer.
For clarification, when the person is second, like from Zoom, could they just say who they are? If it was is that possible? Like I'm not, because I don't recognize that. I don't recognize the voice.
Virginia, were you able to make out who the individual was? I believe it was Mr. Bauer.
I thought it was Mr. Yeager, but you may be right.
We both kind of said it at the same time, but you could give it to either one of us, I'm sure.
I think as long as Virginia knows.
Yeah, I wrote down Mike Yeager on that one.
Okay, that's fine.
My feelings aren't hurt if I don't get a second.
Right.
Well, Justin, you did have 2 already, so we're good.
Right.
On this matter, I have a question for you, Micah. With the 4 grants that are on here at $2,500 to $3,000 a piece, are we going to run into any cash flow issues or any issues being able to pay and afford all of them if we approve them?
No, not at this time. I think it's something that will be beneficial if we can go out and get it, to get those lights updated. And I think it would be a good cost, would be a good expense if it does come to fruition.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me? This is Kurt Schroeder.
Hey, Kurt.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Good.
All right.
Sorry about
Welcome, Kurt.
Wade being. Yeah, thanks. I'm just kind of trying to multitask here. Wade had an emergency come up, but I heard a question. I wanted to jump in on the cost for reapplying for these grants. And I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, these are estimated costs. We hope to do them for less than what we're budgeting. And the effort here is to, in the process of reapplying, we do have to go through and fill out the application, of course, but in addition, we also need to kind of verify the scope and the cost estimation. So there's a little bit of legwork and coordination that we need to do to make sure that, none of the standards update from year to year for the equipment costs and stuff, like for instance, for the signals.
Makes sense.
But it is a reapplication, so most of the information is there, and like I said, we just try to estimate what we think it'll take to do it. But whatever it takes, I think we've estimated about the same in the past, and we've come in for under $2,000 in some cases.
So
sometimes they change the applications.
Do you know why we were denied last time?
It's really just they rank them based on merit, and sometimes when there's other applications, and I hate to say it, but sometimes it's politically influenced. Yep. But they're certainly eligible applications, and we'll work hard to try to push them as best we can to try to get them awarded. But we have actually had certain situations where if we don't get it on the first time, we try on the second time, and sometimes we get it on like the third or the fourth time. So it's definitely worth the continued effort.
Mr. Parker, can I ask a question? Yes, Kurt, what are the application fees for these? Is there an application fee included in this price?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if it is any. It's a nominal amount, and usually that's something that we just front and then include in our invoicing. But if there is one, it's usually $150 or some nominal amount.
Thank you.
Hey, Kurt.
Anyone else?
Do you know, did we increase the amount we're asking for any of these grants, given the current climate of the construction industry?
Yeah, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Wade certainly would have, but that's the type of thing that we look at when reapplying, is making sure that we're still aiming at the right target, to the best of our ability.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anyone else? All right, Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson? Mr. Robinson?
I believe I heard a yes, but okay.
I did also. Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Okay. Motion passes 7-0. 9B, call for a motion to approve resubmitting the application in the amount of $200,000 for the Automated Red Light Enforcement Program grant through PennDOT for upgrades to the existing traffic signals with battery backups, generator plugs, preemption. Right, preemption. Plugs and preemption, okay.
So moved. If that was
Second by
done.
Justin.
Yeah.
Well, you can finish reading.
Well, it's upfront cost to reapply $2,500 to $3,000. It's not actually part of the motion, but right. All right, so it's moved and it's second in discussion.
I Are these just throughout, it doesn't say where this is, is this just in general throughout the borough?
Kurt, you still here?
From what Wade told me, yes.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Kurt.
they are for various traffic signals. It's basically an upgrade in the computers and the hardware and like the hand-man signals to meet the current PennDOT standards.
Any other questions? Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. 9C, a call for a motion to award the contract for the Melvin Avenue Basin retrofit project to G&B Construction in the amount of $208,748, subject to availability of the grant funding. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that was Mr. Bowers. You second it?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yeah.
Quick discussion, I guess, for Kurt. Oh, or if Micah wants to jump in. I mean, this is the lowest responsible bidder, I'm assuming, which was a great price. But the range is just so large. So is there any explanation for why it is such a parity between the 332 versus the 208? Are they a really good, reputable company, I guess is my question.
Yeah, I don't have the information. We've worked with GMB in the past, and we did call around and check their references, and they have done similar work successfully. We've worked with them in other municipalities. I believe, I don't have the information, again, I apologize, in front of me, but I want to say that the second bidder was very close, which gives us some comfort.
Yes.
And we've also worked with that second bidder before as well. But I think the large range in cost, sometimes contractors throw pretty big numbers at projects in the hopes that not other participants will bid or bid it aggressively. So I think that's just a reflection of the busyness of the industry.
Thank you.
And what is the status?
Go ahead.
What's the status of all the grant funding? Because it says subject to the availability. Are we near getting all the grants in place?
We have far more available than that.
Correct.
I'm sorry?
We have far more available than the 208. I want to say we're somewhere around 350. So if something happens and it goes up for some reason, there is more than enough to cover.
That's correct. Yeah, this is really a great story. We did get multiple grants for this project. And so at the end of the conclusion of this project, if everything goes as it's supposed to, bear in mind, this will not only clean up a stormwater basin, it is a sort of a maintenance hog for the public works, but it'll also meet our obligation, our unfunded mandate from really from the federal government down to the state government, down to the municipalities for the MS4 program. That's the PennDOT Pennsylvania DEP requirements. So this will be all paid for through grant funding.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Any other discussion? Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes, build the water park.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. All right, motion passes 7-0. We're going to move on to 9D, a call for a motion to approve an increase in the TAN fund in the 2021 budget from $398,392 to $462,000. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Can I have a second? Second by Mr. Bowers. Discussion?
Ms. Berger did ask where the extra mill is coming from. I don't know if Micah can answer that.
Yes, it
I
would be
guess-
coming from the general fund. What I want to do is put the money into the TAN account, which is a separate account, while we have the tax money in there. What's been happening over the last years, and before obviously Mr. Mitchell said this about increasing the taxes, because we are utilizing the TAN fund earlier and earlier. And then this year I actually sort of had to eat a little crow, let's say, and asked for the MMA to pay us early so we could cover costs and payroll. So the difference in the amount is the amount that basically the MMA forwarded us, which was half of what they usually give us quarterly. So what my goal here is to already have it set aside in the TAN fund and manage the other funds accordingly, knowing that if this is set aside for the reason of getting through the December to April time periods.
So, Micah, in essence, this is coming out of the tax increase.
In short, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there's other things.
Thank you.
Obviously, going with the tax increase that it's going to other places.
Sure.
But this is how I want to utilize a portion of it.
Got it.
But I don't recall Mr. Mitchell talking about the TAN fund as part of the tax increase. So what is not going to happen from the general fund that this is moving to the TAN
he
fund?
didn't talk about that from the tax increase. He talked about having to use it earlier and earlier and earlier.
He did, but in his analysis of what the tax increases were, I don't recall that the TAN fund was part of the mill that was going to be increased. So what is not going to happen because of this moving of cash?
What's now going to happen is that the reserve is going to be there, and we're going to have to manage the money accordingly over the rest of the time periods.
So in other words,
Just
if it
have
was
to work
going,
within the
if it was
budget,
going for salaries and benefits to begin with, it's gonna be held in the TAN fund until it's needed for salary and benefits.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I had asked for a cash flow analysis and that never came our way. So it's a little disturbing just to see this all of a sudden on a motion.
Well, in Scott Mitchell's defense, he'd been asking for some time now to increase that TAN. The amount that we've had for 20 years, just about, which we know doesn't go as far as it did 20 years ago. So, and long story short is just asking for, and once I'll be done, 1 second, Scott, just asking for more money in the TAN just goes to show you, I mean, it's just an obvious, message that we need money. We come up short. So, to not approve this would only put us in bigger peril. I'm done.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think the question that Helen was asking was, what's not going to happen when this money gets moved? And in other words, there's going to be close to a $70,000 that's not going to be in the general fund anymore. If I budget $20 for popcorn in my house and $50 for gas from my car, and I need $70 for gas, I'm not getting popcorn anymore. So what aren't we getting when we move this money over? If we had a $70,000 surplus, or if we're going to have one at the end of the year, then fine, it got moved to the TAN fund. But what are we taking away from? What is the reaction to this action to the general fund?
We're not taking money away from the general fund. We're just putting it out there saying, okay, this is what we're putting out in reserve. When we pull from that reserve, it goes back into the general fund. It's just putting it aside and helping us managing the money.
Right.
So
We're
it's
not using
going
the
anywhere
TAN
else.
now.
It's going to the TAN, it's getting a different interest rate, then it goes back to the general fund when we need to utilize it.
And at the end of the day, if my memory serves me properly, when I looked at the end of last year, December's finals, weren't we like $200,000 in a deficit? So we did deficit spending last year anyway. I don't know why people think that that anything would change from that this year because we've added costs. We've increased taxes, but we've added some major costs anyway. This is just a way to ensure that our personnel that we've hired will get paid. If other things go to the wayside later, they go to the wayside later, but we have to pay the people that we're hiring.
And this PAN isn't utilized until it's for next year. It's not for this year. So, I mean, maybe we budget a little bit differently in the fall and see something we can pull back on, but you know, you can only get skinny so far.
Isn't this something then we should wait and wait till the new borough manager takes a look at this to see? I mean, is the 462 even a good number? I mean, I don't know where the 462 came from.
Just about a mil.
I'm okay with it only because it could be moved at will. There's no laws around moving it back if the new borough manager comes in.
Right.
And we will be dealing with some other things on our list that the new borough manager should have a buy-in to. But this is one that could be fixed in a minute. It's just the ledger. It's just a ledger adjustment.
Right. And also I can tell you that we were dangerously close to running out of money at the beginning of the year before the tax money started to come in. So.
Sure, that's right.
So. All right, any other further discussion?
Yeah, this is Justin. Mike, I have another question. So budget-wise, if I look in the budget, where's this money coming out of to go into the TAN fund? What budget lines?
It would come out of the same TAN, it would be coming out of the general fund. And you would see it move to the due to froms in the general fund and the due froms to the TAN fund.
Okay, but I guess, so is there a budget in there this year to cover that?
No, it will be going over.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're going to be going over budget. Is that what you said? Micah?
Yes.
What we did last year. By almost $250,000.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes, but in the future, I'd like the finance director to give us a little more information with this, not just a motion.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. 9E, a call for a motion approving the resolution to submit as part of the application for the DCED Greenways Trails and Recreation Program Grant in the amount of $250,000 to be used for the Manor Park Playground Improvement Project, and to authorize the Borough Council President and interim Borough Manager to execute all necessary documents for the grant. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I do have, if Kurt's still there, I do have a question. We did this almost the $590,000. Now, is this looking to alleviate some of that
Kurt
grant
had to
that
hop
we
off.
might not?
He had to go to another meeting. So he,
then maybe
I
you
just
know.
got a text from him 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
From him and Wade that they had to hop off.
All right.
So Kurt is no
So-
longer in the meeting.
Does anybody understand the question? I mean, we did one for, I think, $590,000 for Manor Park. I think it was last month. I'm sorry, I don't have that with me. But I'm just wondering if this 250, because it's coming from DCED, which is different. It's a different location. So is this supposed to help alleviate that other grant? Does anybody know?
In prior conversations, I believe the DCED has zero match, correct me if I'm wrong there, and it can be used as matching funds for other grants.
Right.
So that's probably what we're doing here. I just wanted to confirm.
I believe
but-
we are.
Okay.
I don't want to be pinned down to it, but I believe Mr. Yeager is right.
All right, thank you.
And in addition, there's no guarantee that we would get the 590,000. So if we got 200,000 of it, this would cover that too.
Right.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. Roll call, Virginia?
Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Okay, motion passes 7-0. 9F, call for a motion approving the resolution to submit as part of the application for the DCED Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program grant in the amount of $250,000 to be used for Patriots Park at Historic Summerseed, and to authorize the Borough Council President and interim Borough Manager to execute all necessary documents for the grant. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. We have Ms. Halaho has moved it first, and I believe Mr. Bowers was second. So we have a motion in a second. Can I have discussion, please? All right, hearing none. Roll call, Virginia?
Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yeah.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to 9G, a motion to approve a temporary waiver of the 60-hour limit for part-time police officers through August 31st, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paul. Discussion?
This is Justin. I have a couple comments. One, in reading this, I think there should be a start date in it as well as the end date. I'd also like counsel or legal counsel to maybe jump in on this question, but are there any issues with us voting on this tonight on 6/21 when a memo was sent from legal counsel to the chief on June 11th, allowing the waiver from June 8th through August 31st?
No, you're ratifying it. It was a personnel issue, police issue, also subject to negotiations with the union. So in a sense, you're ratifying that action.
Okay. Thanks.
And can we get some kind of maybe biweekly report showing us how many hours an officer has worked over this 60-hour limit? I don't want to get into a situation where one officer is working 100 hours. Is that possible?
I mean, it's not part of the motion, but I don't know what the chief can and can't provide, but we can, he's here, he's heard a request, and he can get back to us.
And just to clarify, Mr. President, so there's no confusion with the public, the 60 hours isn't weekly. That was every 2 weeks for part-time employees.
Yes.
Yep.
Correct, sir.
So what is a good hourly rate, Chief? Like 60 hours, what's the maximum one officer could potentially work?
Well, when you think about it, an officer works usually 8 hours.
Could you come up to the podium?
Excuse me?
Could you come up to the podium so the public can hear you?
Please.
So if you think about this, a usual officer usually works 84 hours every 2 weeks. So by them having, this gives every officer, every part-time officer another 2 shifts if necessary. But I will manage the part-time officers so they will be efficiently used like I have for the last 7 years. And I will keep them under the budget that I've been able to keep on there for years now. I will manage that.
So should we add in what the maximum they could work?
I would say no, please do not do that.
Will
I
you
may
provide
make-
us information?
Go ahead, Mr. Yeager.
Thank you, sir. So just for the public's knowledge, anyone who's following along, I just want to speak my piece on this so you understand my vote. I think it's a horrible way to treat somebody, to provide them a position that is the same as somebody who's getting benefits and not offer them benefits. I know this is temporary and it's probably more than needed. But there's things we could have done previously from a part-time officer position to manage this that we failed to do. So that's on us as a council and a town, quite frankly. But at the end of the day, to victimize somebody that can't get a full-time position and work them as a full-time officer without providing them the same benefits as any full-time officer, I think is a horrible way to treat people. So I just want the public to understand why I'm voting. This isn't against the police, it's for the police.
Mr. Parker?
I just want to say something. These are generally per diem employees. They're not employees that we have that are part-time, that are regularly scheduled part-timers. These are employees who fill in shifts when they're available, right?
Correct.
So they're not on the payroll unless they're actually working.
Understood.
Right.
But
So
we
they're-
classify them as part-time, not per diem. We've had this argument with the mayor.
And I believe that's illegal. I believe that's a legal definition that we're not able to call them per diem, but that's how they're used. Mrs. Sherlock?
I was just going to say,
Mr. Yeager, Ms. Sherlock.
I'm under the impression that the officer can work the shift or not work the shift. We're not forcing anybody to work the shift. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and taking advantage of people doesn't always mean that they don't agree to it.
Well, not to argue that point, sir, but the study, if you go look back at the state study, we should have 16 full-time officers. That's really the only way to solve this part-time problem. But financially, the borough cannot do that. I would love to have a full-time police department with no part-timers, but unfortunately, it's a very expensive thing to do.
Yeah, and much to your same concern, I would like to have part-time officers that are actually part-time officers. So your point is taken, but it's just not in the same direction, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, and
these part-time officers are only part-time through the summertime, and these officers all welcome being able to work those extra hours.
Ms. Parker, just one brief thing. When we have the 30 hours, these officers are, even considering the ones we're talking about, I know our full-time officers, they work 12-hour shifts, right?
Correct.
Right. So by capping it at 30, were they getting a half a shift or they were really only getting 24 hours?
No, it was 60 hours, so you get 5 12-hour shifts.
Okay.
So that's why we were able
just
to make
split up
that.
between 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question if I could.
Summertime. Oh. Go ahead, Scott.
I have a question real quick for the chief. Up until the end of August, when this when we relaxed the hours, other than the absolute required training, such as going to the range and whatnot, have you suspended any of the training? Because I know a couple weeks ago we had 2 officers that were away for I don't know, maybe you can I don't know what purpose it served the borough for the training that they're away. But if we have officers going away for training that, and I mean, other than it's absolutely required for them to keep their certs, that will be suspended for the summertime. Yes, no?
Hold on. The training there's training in June. One of the trainings was for Justin Bickard, who was my firearms training officer, had to go to this. This was a specific training for 4 days for active shooter. The other 2 officers that you're speaking of are going down to Atlantic City for street survival, which was scheduled back in February. But with COVID, it was postponed twice already, and that's why they're going now. There is no training. I sent everybody the schedule. Okay. There is no training.
Right.
There is no training in July and August.
I I don't want to sound cynical, and of course I'm not a cop. I'm not involved in law enforcement, but I would question with the limited hours that we have right now. I don't want to sound like a smart aleck asking this question, but can you tell me what 2 officers going to street survival training is going to how that is going to enrich our department on a day-to-day basis? How that will make me safer as a resident?
I will send you the course, and you can look at the course, what it talks about. It talks about anything from street fighting.
Just want you to explain it to me. I don't have time to read the course. Just tell me, will that make me a safer citizen?
Is it worthwhile? Absolutely.
Yes.
All the training that my officers go to is professional training. That this conference will have 1,000 officers there. It's very much sought out by departments.
I understand that, but when we're short-staffed and we're like scraping the bottom of the barrel for coverage, does going to that training outweigh the risks of potentially only having not being able to cover a shift? That's what I'm getting at. I mean, we're covering the shift. I'm working Thursday.
That's one of the days the officers are training. I'm working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm okay with doing that to be able to cover the streets, to be able to send them to this professional training.
Okay. But no more for July or August, because that's obviously...
There's no training for July and August. There's no training for July and August.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right.
So I'm sorry. So I had a question though. Is there a maximum number of hours that one officer can work?
It's not in the motion, but it's not what we agreed to before. No, it's just to go over this.
It's not in the agreement.
So we're affirming the agreement, and that's the motion before us.
Which was discussed with the union. Is that
yes?
So we
they're
should stick to what
in
we have.
agreement. Yes.
They gave a letter to council that they were in agreement of this, and it actually benefits their members to allow them to have time off this summer.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Roll call, Virginia, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Laho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
No.
This guy walking up right here. He parked where the yellow is, and he's like 1.5 feet off the curb. He's going to get hit by a truck pulling out.
Scott, your mic is live. Scott, your mic is live.
Sorry, I have a dispute here at work. I'm sorry.
Continue, Virginia, please.
I'm sorry. Mr. Yeager, you said no?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion passes 6-1.
But I'd also like to add that in the future, can we get a better analysis and not just a schedule of why this is happening? Just a summary. Maybe the thing is to look at it in the spring and try to hire more part-timers so that we don't have to do this again. Just my suggestion.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Do you have anything?
Excuse me. Let me address the question, please. There are no more part-timers out there. If there were, I would have hired them. We have a contract with these officers, full-time officers, that some of them get 4 or 5 weeks off a year, plus the comp time they get from the working 12-hour shifts. They have a ton of time that they take off. And obviously, most of them want to take off in the summertime. So we have to, that's why this is such a squeeze point. We just got to get through the summer and then we're okay again.
Didn't a part-timer or two just quit?
I had one officer, one officer just resigned, yes.
Right, so he needed to be replaced and maybe we wouldn't be having to do this.
Ma'am, there's nobody out there. We have a difficult time replacing part-time officers. They're like gold. If you remember, like Mr. Mitchell used to say, part-time officers are like gold. If you can get one, grab them. They're not out there. Unfortunately, if you could find them, please send them my way.
Do you want me to?
please
Okay.
send them my way.
Okay.
They must have MPO number. They have to have Act 120. They got to be certified. They're not out there.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, we're going to move on to 9H, a motion to authorize the borough manager to re-advertise the position of code enforcement officer. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Question, is this what, we did this in February, I think, right?
Right.
But wasn't it part-time then? This doesn't clarify one way or the other.
Well, I think it was left vague to make sure that's what we wanted to do.
Okay, all right, just one, thank you.
So if I may,
Go ahead, sir.
sure we expected this. So I'm a little concerned that we would hire a search firm for a borough manager that doesn't really have any specific requirements other than we had requirements, right, for a specific level of experience and so forth. And we're going to put an ad out without using a search firm for a position that really requires certifications and trainings that none of us are really clear on. How does that work? And furthermore, why would we do this before the new borough manager gets their feet wet in the office to cause more havoc for that person to have somebody training in a new position without oversight? So I think we're putting the cart before the horse when we're concerned in other areas for the borough manager having input, but not concerned with them having input on the staff that they'll be managing. And again, us hiring somebody that is going to have very specific trainings and UCC knowledge that I don't think any of us possess to be able to even quiz them on, him or her, to hire for that position, I think, like I thought last time, it's just a really bad idea. And right now, it's even worse timing. So I'm not sure why this is even on the agenda. It seems like really bad timing, and it comes across political as so to speak, when you're looking at something that the last people did, and you're just trying to undo stuff, and that's what it comes across as. The prior council hired this firm because we wanted somebody who is professional and knowledgeable and properly accredited. We have that. We have an individual out there doing code enforcement that I've gotten nothing but positive feedback on for the past year and a half. So I just don't understand why the struggle has to be, we have to hire this position, other than people ran on that. So I get that you're trying to keep your promises, guys, but think about the borough when you're making these decisions and what the timing looks like.
All right.
Mr. Parker?
Well, I want to add something first.
Okay.
This is a motion to advertise.
Yeah.
There's no deadline on when we're going to advertise. If we're going to advertise tomorrow, next week, after the manager starts, it's just an authorization for the manager to hire. We're not placing the ad for the manager. We're not hiring a position tonight. We're authorizing the manager to place an advertisement for it. That's it.
Why?
There's no political thing behind this other than for as many, let me finish, sir.
Okay, sure.
For as many positive things you've heard about our code enforcement with Keystone, I believe there are some members up here who have heard the opposite. So this was something that was decided to be tried before. The pool was rather small. There are other places to advertise that we've discovered while searching for a manager at little or no cost. So that was the thought behind it. So I'll let Mrs. Sherlock have the floor.
Yes, to echo some of the things you said, yes, but this is not fulfilling a promise. There is no political hack waiting to take this position. This is a professional service that we would ask for, no different than we did with Gilmore Associates and Flager. And I don't know that they were interviewed, and that wasn't done through a search committee. So there are professional services out there for code and zoning, and they're reputable companies that are out there, and that is the direction that I'm hoping we would take. But if you look at the analysis that we just received from our monthly report, it appears as if the figures are a little askew into how much is being paid for by the public, and even in that breakdown, the public is still paying by the fines. I understand that that's the way it's set up, that the fines will take care of the employee or the service. But it's still a little skewed because there are a number of fines that are, or I should say applications or fines that are higher than, I know we were told they're on par, but there are some that are higher in this community, which is not necessarily a wealthy community. So this is not something that was pre-planned unless I'm in the complete dark with my fellow council people here. I don't know anything about someone who's looking for this job that we've talked to or that we're planning on hiring. So no, so it's not some sort of political move.
Thanks, Ms. Sherlock. So I guess I'm confused because the motion is to re-advertise for the position, not for a service. You're advertising the position. So I'm confused with that answer because that's not what we're advertising for. What we're advertising is to hire an individual, not a service. So it wouldn't be like Gilmore Associates or Keystone or any of the service providers that we've appointed. It would be the appointment of an individual, right?
Well, you're correct. The wording does read that way.
And I believe that's where the majority of council, when we moved and approved a motion to hire a part-time code enforcement officer, was to try to bring code back in-house because I don't want to speak for anybody up here, but most of us are not particularly happy with the code enforcement being handled by Keystone.
I guess that will just be reflected in the vote.
Can I add something, Ted? Ted?
Go ahead, sir.
Back on June 6th, I sent you a picture and a complaint from a resident that it looks like I don't know, a jungle, for lack of a better phrase, on the 300 block of Parks Prospect. And I had another resident email me after that, and other people said, "Hey, what's going on with that?" How was that handled? Was there anything? What?
Yes, a code enforcement officer was sent out. They mailed citations to the listed property owner in Philadelphia, and they were waiting for the what they refer to as the green card, which would be the registered mail signature receipt, to be returned. And as of a couple of days ago, I don't believe it was received yet.
I went to the house thinking that possibly it was an elderly person or somebody that just needed help, but honestly, I couldn't find my way to the front door. So it's that much of a jungle, and so I couldn't, because yes, we should be doing this through the code, but if this is someone that needed help or had a legitimate reason why it was so overgrown, then it doesn't hurt to, dig a little. But I can't get to the door.
Well, there's a lot of homes that code needs to be looking at that just, our current code, it just isn't. I mean, I see tons of homes. I bring in some addresses to the borough. Neighbors come to me and complain about homes, and I don't see any changes being made. So I would just like to know with this motion, where are we going to be advertising? Because I believe Mr. Mitchell said when he advertised, he didn't get much response. So should we be advertising somewhere different?
Yeah, I think we were going to look, I don't want to speak for the administration, but I think looking at some of the places that we placed the manager's ad.
Okay, that's fine.
Some of those professional services. So just my view on this is, for me, the point at which Keystone handling code became a major issue is when they refused a request by the borough manager to come out at night to look at the hookah lounge. For a vendor to tell the borough manager no, at that point, I knew we needed our in-house code enforcement again. Plain and simple. And there is nobody in the wings waiting to come in, no political hack, no promises made. This will be a professional search, just like we did a professional review of resumes and that by the borough manager, whoever that may be at the time. They're all taken in, and the best person hired if there's somebody there. If there's not, then we have to as a council, look at other options.
So I just also want to make sure the borough manager will be the one that decides who to hire, correct? That will be left to them?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm hoping with us being kept in the loop rather than
Yes,
in the.
yeah, but this should be their decision.
It should be their decision.
Yes.
That would be their employee. All right, we're going to move this now.
Ted, this is
Virginia,
Justin.
roll call, please.
I still
Go
have
ahead.
a comment.
Go ahead.
I don't think you're necessarily correct on the borough manager doing this, because if it is, as Nancy says, a professional service, then it goes to council to appoint it.
It's not a, Nancy's not correct. It's a hire. It's an employee, just like the
Okay.
motion was before.
I
Okay.
stand corrected. Well, it could be either, but you're right.
No.
It's reading.
No,
I mean, if it doesn't work out that we find an individual or that person, then we may have to go to a different option.
Another resolution.
This is a motion to re-advertise. This is a continuation of the prior motion that the
Okay.
borough manager was unable to find an applicant, suitable applicant, I should say. Anything
So-
else, Justin?
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure on the direction here. I mean, is this position is going to cover just code enforcement, and will it cover all the qualifications in order to do UCC buildings and plan reviews, or are we still going to have a third party for that? And how about a fire marshal? Will we be looking for somebody else to do that, or is Keystone to still do it? Or, I mean,
I think, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think the last time we brought this up, the thought was, we'll see what resumes come in and who's the best person and what their qualifications are, and then go from there.
I think it'll be hard to get away from the third party.
I believe so too, considering the large number of certifications.
So can I ask, I know the borough manager hasn't started yet, but can we just send them the ad to see if they're in agreement with it?
Right, like just what I said, we're just authorizing the borough manager's office, for lack of a.
I know, but I'm talking about the potential borough manager. Can they at least see the ad, because they are going to be hiring, so that at least they could see what the ad
I
says?
would be comfortable once we have a signed contract.
Oh, okay, all right.
But like I said, this actual advertisement that we don't have any deadlines in here. This is just, since we meet monthly, it's just the motion to, if the manager starts in August and says, we're not going to do this right this moment, the motion is still there authorizing the manager to place an advertisement and look for code enforcement.
So this is for the borough manager, not the interim?
It's for whoever.
Okay.
I would prefer the borough manager, yes. All right. Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Bowers?
No.
Ms. Alaho?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
No.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 5-2. All right, moving on to 9I. Yes. The motion to approve the Morrisville Business Association request to hold a car show on Saturday, September 18th, 2021, rain date being Sunday, September 19th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. on East Bridge Street between Delmar and Pennsylvania Avenues, and to authorize the borough administration to submit the permit paperwork to PennDOT. And then there's a note set up and registration is from 8 to 9. Car show starts at 9 a.m. We have a motion, please?
So moved?
Second, Justin.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
This is Justin. My only comment is directed to the NBA. I know 2 years ago when they did this, they had a good showing, and I had some comments after it. And I think since I didn't look into what I previously said, but I think it was something along the lines of the next time they do it, I hope that they have some better signage and advanced signage for the road closing, just to keep the traffic moving a little better. Other than that, I look forward to having it.
All right. The response was will do. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0. All right, we have an appointment that's not listed as an action item, but it could be 9J. We're looking to appoint for 2 open positions on the Environmental Advisory Council. One position has 7 months remaining of a 3-year term, which expires on January 22nd, 2022, and one position with 18 months remaining of a 3-year term, which expires on 12/19/2022. We do have.
I would like to nominate Elaine Hanley for the position that expires 12/19/2022.
We have a nomination for one of the positions. Which one? For the 18-month one?
Elaine has been an associate member of the MEAC for 7 years now. I think she's very well versed in it, interested.
Right.
And I think she'd be a fine candidate.
I agree with you. I've been shadowing the council as council president, and I agree with you. She's been on there for many years, and she's an asset to the council. Do you have any other nominations for the one term with 18 months remaining?
Did we receive any letter of interest from her? I don't recall.
Yes, we did. It was
just today.
It's sent. Virginia, I believe, emailed it.
Yes, I did.
Yep.
I did. We just received it today.
Got it in the last email, Justin, like around 7 o'clock. It was in with the proclamation that we had earlier tonight also.
Didn't even know we got an email.
All right. Do we have any other nominations for this position?
I don't recall getting any other letters of interest. Did we get any?
It's been advertised for a little while now, too. So we'll only be filling the one position tonight since we don't. I'm sorry, Virginia, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right. No, I just wanted to say Helen is correct. That was the only one that we did receive.
Right. So there are 2 positions open, and we're only able to fill one because I'd rather not fill something without at least having a letter from someone. So, hearing no other nominations, can we have a roll call to appoint Ms. Henley to the Environmental Advisory Council for the one position with 18 months remaining of a 3-year term expiring on 12/19/2022?
Yes.
Go ahead, Virginia.
Mr. Bowers?
No, only because I haven't seen the email yet.
Mr. Lahal?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson? Excuse me.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 6-1. We'll continue to advertise, and hopefully somebody will submit a letter of interest for the other position.
Do we put these out on Facebook or anything? Like, I don't know where
On the website.
I know, but we need to do a little more. Like, people don't know where to look. But when I go on the website, sometimes it takes me forever to find where I need to be. Like, we have a Facebook page, correct? A borough Facebook page?
I guess we could
Yes,
maybe
we
work
do.
on pinning something to the top of the page.
Yeah, because otherwise people don't know that this even exists.
They are usually
So there's
advertised
all-
on there. If they're advertised on the
And for
website, they're usually on Facebook too.
I would just maybe, the suggestion was to pin it so that it's constantly at the top of the page and doesn't get lost with the daily posts.
And for the old timers, it's actually on our TV.
Okay. Also on there.
Yeah, like, a lot of people don't have cable anymore.
Oh, I know.
Which, I'm just, yeah. Just when you just mentioned cable, I see that, we normally budget $100,000 for the cable, but if the quarterly stay the same for the rest of the year, it's going to be only about 82,000.
Yeah, and that's-
So we know that's been going down.
And that's something that Mr. Mitchell also warned us about.
Correct. Another $20,000 loss.
Okay, we're going to move on to 10, other business. 10A, zoning ordinance discussion. You want to go with that?
Without objection, we sent around a proposed ordinance. And without objection, we'll advertise it and you can consider it next month at next month's meeting. The reason we want to bring it up this month is because anyone who would want to put a hookah lounge in is now, or such use would now be would be on notice that there's a pending ordinance doctrine in Pennsylvania. And so this would apply. So they couldn't sneak in, so to speak, without, before you could pass the ordinance next month, if that's your desire.
But the two existing are grandfathered, is that correct?
You cannot, yes. But they're, obviously, we've been working with the police and with zoning and everybody else, the management here to prosecute that. We've been in court with them a number of times. We've gone out to Doylestown. So we're going to do everything we can to bring them into compliance, or they can choose to leave and go somewhere else if they can't apply here.
So in this ordinance also, it talks about nightclubs. So we do have two establishments in town that are not per se nightclubs, but are acting like nightclubs. So would this ordinance pertain to them as well, or are they grandfathered in? Because they don't really have a nightclub.
Well, we will attempt to use this ordinance as well and also they may try to claim that they're pre-existing, but this will also prevent anything new from happening in the borough.
Will it address like BYOB clubs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
BYOB clubs or BYOB restaurants?
No, it's like nightclubs.
Nightclubs,
It
okay.
addresses
A place that wouldn't necessarily be serving food and meals.
Correct.
Just
Okay.
as a point of order, do we have a motion that we're in discussion on, or where are we?
No,
It's a
I was just
discussion item.
discussing. We're just discussing. It's just discussion. I said without objection, we will advertise this for your consideration next month.
So if I may, since we're in discussion, first of all, Mr. Flager, thank you for your hard work on this. I read through it. I get it. It actually tightens some things up, and I appreciate it. But my question is more for the council. Why do we have a policy committee? Stuff like this should go through the policy committee. The policy committee should be making recommendations to council, and then council should be sending it. Before we spend a dime on attorney fees, council should be looking at something like this and having input before but just decide to take action like this. I just don't understand why we even have a policy committee if we're not going to use it and use it properly to make sure that council's in the loop on changes. I'm okay with the change. I'm not okay with the process.
Mr. Parker?
Go ahead.
Mike, most of the times I would agree with what your statement. But in this particular one, I'm not sure where a policy committee would start because of the newness and the nuances with this particular problem. But that does bring me to something I want to discuss later about our ordinance committee. But you're right, it's much better for the policy committee to go through things first before we spend any money. And then just have them review.
Even if it's just to say this is an issue that we think needs to be addressed and we'd like to have it sent to an attorney for review or recommendation, then council looks at it and says, yes, this should go for recommendation. We accept that recommendation. This should go for review or additional action. We're just jumping over all of that and just sending it to the attorneys, which again, I understand that this is a little bit of a heightened issue, but we have to react within the way we're supposed to operate. And I just don't see that we're following the process that should be followed. And it's not just for this one thing. It's happened many, many times with this council. The committees aren't functioning accurately or properly in most cases, and we're just jumping past council committees to just act, and that's not how this is supposed to work. We're supposed to have time to deliberate and not just jump right into it. However, like I said, it's not that I'm opposed to this legislation. That's not the point. The point is, as legislators, we're just kind of telling the solicitor to do our job and do it for us, rather than us as a body, or at least as a subcommittee, making a decision to move forward. We're just handing it to the administration and say, figure it out. That's not how it works.
Mr. Parker?
So let me add this one thing, please.
Okay.
I'll let you go. Under normal circumstances, I would agree with you, but with COVID and not having an actual firm date of when meetings could be held again, and Zoom being an issue, and the sudden appearance of clubs that seem to be popping up like warts on a frog, the best course of action was to let the professional handle this and get it done quickly, which is exactly what they did. And by getting this advertised quicker and now, rather than a month, 2, 3, 4, while it's discussed, we have an ordinance here that will be advertised and will basically put the brakes on any potential hookah lounge, BYOB/nightclub. Sometimes the solicitor is needed. And the council committees are advisory committees. They don't make policy. They don't make ordinances. They work through them with the solicitor. I don't expect anyone on council to be making up new policies or ordinances on their own without the direct interaction with the solicitor and whoever that solicitor may be at that particular time. Okay, Ms. Sherlock.
No, that's all right.
I never recommended that. I said that the committee should meet, discuss it, and then recommend to council to take action, as opposed to just somebody arbitrarily deciding we're going to take action. That's how the process should work, to make sure that everybody's on board with it, as opposed to, and again, it's not about the legislation, it's about the process. You're making an excuse based on.
I am not making an excuse, and don't try to push this back as that to get your point across. The point is, wait a minute.
It's easier for you. Easier doesn't.
No,
make
it's not.
It right. Easier and faster doesn't make it right.
It's not.
That's all I'm saying.
You made your point that you wanted to make, but it just doesn't jive with what's going on. We have a solicitor spending on tens of thousands of dollars of
at the end of the day, this thing could have blown up.
Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
Already
enough is enough.
Point of order.
Enough is enough. Stop it, Mr. Yeager.
Without consulting the rest of the council.
Stop it, Mr. Yeager.
Without consulting the rest of the
yourself.
Decisions.
Control yourself.
Taxpayer money. Stop doing that, please.
And the solicitor would have to have done it anyway, because there is nobody on this council who is authorized to make a new ordinance on their own.
There is no one on this council that can
unilaterally or 3 council members or 4 council members.
That's what's happening. You can't unilaterally spend taxpayer money. You're making those decisions.
Yeah.
Virginia, roll call, please. There's no motion. Well, yeah, you know what? I'm going to make a motion. A motion to authorize the solicitor to advertise the ordinance.
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Was he ready for the so moved.
How about reopening public comment so we do it right, Mr. President?
Let's do the motion first. Do I have a second, or I'll second? It's seconded by myself. I'm going to open up the floor to public comment. If anybody would like to make a comment.
Jane Berger, 90 West Maple Avenue. Ordinance is near and dear to my heart, as Mr. Sherlock knows. I understand process, Mr. Yeager, absolutely. I am actually more comfortable with the fact that rather than just having a discussion, you are doing a formal motion to authorize the solicitor to take this, because with zoning, you need to have a public hearing and it has to go to our planning commission. So I think this makes it more of a formal process to do. And anybody who lives near the hookah lounges knows that sometimes you need to have expediency. And certainly moving forward, I do agree, if you have committees, they do need to be active. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Virginia, roll call, please.
Hold on a second. What about borough comment? Official comment. I haven't had a chance to talk.
Oh, well, because somebody else was talking over everybody. But go ahead, sir. I'll let you go. I'll entertain another round of discussion.
Okay. I have some comments and questions. pertaining to both of them, since we define a hookah bar / lounge and we define a nightclub, and basically are trying to impose the same restrictions on both. I'm just curious who chose the hours and why are they be allowed to be open until 12 a.m. and not open until 11 a.m. in the morning. I get that they're a late night problem. Maybe, should they be closed earlier? Should there be debate over if they're allowed to open earlier in the morning? Just thoughts that I have reading this, since we didn't have a discussion or limited discussion. No alcoholic beverages may be served or consumed on the premises. If a hookah bar got a liquor license, would that supersede this? No hookah bar or lounge may be located on a property that is adjacent to a residential district or property. I agree with that one. No one under the age of 21 shall be permitted on the premises. I have concerns about that. Why is the age of 21? What's the rationale for it? I mean, I think people can buy cigarettes at 18 yet, and this is no different than cigarettes for the most part. Why are we upping the limit, especially if we're not allowing alcoholic beverages? As for nightclubs, it defines a nightclub as any private or public establishment that allows people to gather for the purposes of listening to music, dancing, or other social interaction. So when I read that, does that leave us open to a very broad definition? Would that regulate something like the Solid Youth Center? Because it's a center for social interaction. It may not be called a nightclub, but it falls under, I would think it might fall under the other social interaction club. Similarly, does this have any effect on the Fraternal Order of the Eagles that's in town, or the former Italian American Club? I know it's not there anymore, but if there was another organization like that, would they fall under this?
I believe they do as fraternal.
And would this apply to the Firehouse on a non-trading night? I know that they have like a social get-together night, and I just want to make sure that we're not having implications and other things by having such a broad definition.
If I may, Mr. President, I can answer some of these questions.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'll work backwards for you, Mr. Bowers. The answer is, it is a broad definition. However, you have within the ordinance already, there's more definitions of different types of uses that are more narrow. Meaning a lot of those things you brought up are actually already covered. We look through, the ordinances, the definitions that already exist, and there's enough of a differentiation within the different definitions and uses that exist that the overlap doesn't happen with the broad definition. Working back again, I'll go from the type of the hours. We looked at surrounding municipalities, surrounding municipalities' ordinances, seeing what they did, what their hours were. We sort of took a range of those and found somewhere in the middle. If those would like to be changed, if council has different hours, that's perfectly within their purview. As for the age, 21, federal law was changed about a year or two ago. I can't remember what year it was, but the legal age to buy cigarettes, to tobacco products, and use these hookah products is now 21. So that law was actually changed within the last couple of years. So people under the age of 21, that 18 to 21 range, can no longer buy tobacco products or hookah products.
I haven't been 21 for a while. I haven't had to worry about whether or not I need to show ID for a tobacco.
Yes. I spent a lot of time in Wawa.
So a nightclub is not necessarily like a bar, correct? It's like back in my day, a nightclub was a bar.
Right. No.
So this
correct.
is different.
Bars, right? In Pennsylvania.
And remember, bars controlled by the LCB.
Okay, so this is
if they're selling alcohol.
That's right.
Okay.
It's not. I'm sorry.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, sir.
This isn't about the specifics of this zoning ordinance, but I want to go back to the comments that Mike had made about committees and Ted's comments in response to that. And just generally my own experience. because I've been on council now for about a year and a half, and I'm pretty frustrated and I'm lost on a lot of these issues. One of my questions, in fact, I was talking to several members today, is what is the function of our committees? We have all these committees on council, and I think we should use them. And because of COVID and lots of other things, for whatever reason, as far as I know, a lot of these committees don't even meet most of the time. And when they do meet, we don't get regular reports back. And it's as if they're working on a parallel universe. We need to step up the efficiency of this council, and that's not just waiting until a new borough manager arrives to make everything okay. We stumbled when we had Scott Mitchell, who was pretty competent. We got to get our act together among ourselves. This arguing back and forth, picking at each other every opportunity we get is getting us absolutely nowhere. We're making fools of ourselves in front of the residents that we represent, as far as I'm concerned. I feel embarrassed. I hope the rest of you do too a little bit sometimes. But we need to use these committees, because I don't know how to get an ordinance passed. I was asking people today, because I get complaints, as does everybody on this council. We get complaints from our neighbors. The latest one is roosters crowing all night. Chief's laughing because he knows about it. But some of us have heard about this. There are at least 2 or 3 cases of these roosters that are driving people crazy. And we just throw up our hands, and then we can't just go and draft and call Randy and Scott and tell them to draft an ordinance and slap it on everybody. We've got to go through a process. And if we have these committees, that seems to be the most effective way to bring things through council, rather than have 8 of us sitting up here pissing on each other. Bring it to the council for 3 or 4 people. They can work something up and then present, and the committee can present it to council, so council can consider it. And then if it requires outside counsel, if it requires the borough solicitor or zoning council or whomever, then we get them involved. But we are doing it backwards. We hear a problem, someone complains, we call up Randy, we say, can we fix this? Oh yeah, fine, we'll fix it. And then we bring it here as if it's a fait accompli. Of course people are pissed off. I'm pissed off. I don't know what the hell is going on half the time. So let's give ourselves a break. Let's excuse ourselves for the fact that we've gone through a pandemic that has put everybody in strange operational mode. We haven't been face to face for months, and even now, only half of us made it here today. Please, I'm talking, okay?
You're right.
And so I don't care whether Mike Yeager said it, or Ted Parker said it, or Nancy Sherlock says it, or Helen Law says it. I'm not taking positions based on who said it, and they're my friend or they're my enemy, or on this issue, I got pissed off at them, so I'm going to vote against them on something else. We got to get past this. We got to grow up, and we got to start functioning like a real council, and that means using our committees or get rid of the committees. If we decide we don't want committees, that they get in the way, then fine, let's abolish them. But don't have them listed on the website and never use them. I don't even know who's on the policies and ordinance committee until today. I looked it up because I don't ever hear from them. I don't know who's on it. I don't know what they've done in the past. So shame on me. But I'm putting my foot down, and I'm saying, I'm at least admitting to everybody that we've done less than a stellar job in all this. And I, for one, would like to get back on the right track. And we should start now, not wait for 6 or 8 weeks until we have the new borough manager. We can't put everything in abeyance, all of our problems, and keep them juggling in the air. And then when the poor new borough manager shows up, just dump it all on that person and say, okay, now fix it. Now that you're here, thank God, please fix it. We got to start working now to make up for some of the shoddy work that we've done over the last few months. And again, I'm as guilty as anybody, if not more guilty than most. So this is just a plea. Can we just act like adults and act like good citizens and give the citizens of Morrisville the kind of representation and attention that they deserve? And if we need to re-examine our procedures, whether we need bylaws for how council conducts itself because we don't seem to know how to do that, or if we need bylaws on how to use committees, or if we need to just have a session where we just talk about process and no substantive issues, fine. Maybe we need to do that. I know that Mr. Parker is advocating that we bring back the agenda meetings. And if we do that, maybe that's another way we can do that more. But in any case, I think we should revive the committees, make the committees, active, living things that actually contribute to the work of this council. And then we use borough solicitors and other outside vendors more cost effectively and at the right time. I don't expect Randy Flager and Scott Holbert to turn us down when we ask them to do something. It's not for them to say, well, gee, did you run through the committee? That's up to us. And it's up to us to, and if we get complained about anyone's bills, it's up to us to make sure that we're acting in a more effective, sensible manner. So I know this is a little disjointed, but I'm kind of fed up with this. I admit that I can do better, and I'm going to try to do better, and I hope everybody else does too. That's all I've had to say.
I'd like to just add also to your point, Bob, the problem with some of the
Point
committees.
of order,
is
there's a
they're
motion
really-
on the table. Can we get voting on it? We're off on a tangent, way off on a tangent. I was nice enough to let Bob finish. Helen, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I think we should get back to the meeting.
It's all.
I agree.
It's all. Do we want to go to a vote, or I'll just finish your comment?
Well, just really quick, like people have different ideas of what the committees are going to be. Like Jaeger thinks it's one thing, I think it's another thing, somebody else thinks. I think we need to have an established 2-sentence what the committee's purpose is, because otherwise, like, is the policy committee about roosters? I don't know.
We need to agree
Correct.
on what it is. We need to
Exactly.
discuss it and agree to it.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen by making little entries onto the website or passing notes around. We need to actually have a conversation.
We do, but this is not the place for it. This is a business meeting. This is our legislative meeting. This is where we pass things. We make motions and we pass them. That is why we need agenda meetings. They've gone away and things don't get done until the last minute and they're brought up at the meetings, or things are in the works and not everybody knows about it. The agenda meetings are not, they're workshop meetings. That's the right wording.
And we should call them workshops.
I have to think we should discuss.
This is not the place.
Honestly and straightforwardly, and we should,
this is not, this is discuss it.
Mr. Parker.
Agenda. Go ahead, Nancy.
I'm sorry. We have to call them special meetings. We in our little circle can say workshop, but by borough code has to be a special meeting. I agree. Because we've probably all felt a little bit disconnected over the past year, having Zoom meetings in addition to not having the agenda meetings.
Right.
So I agree with, some of what Bob's saying. And
I don't mean to cut you off, Nancy. One of the biggest mistakes we made was to eliminate agenda meetings.
Well, I don't know if
that is an informal meeting. That is where these things come up. That is where Mr. Paul brings up the fact that there were roosters crowing from 4 a.m. through mid-morning.
Can we talk about roosters later and finish with this?
Excuse me for bringing up a real issue.
I'm not making fun of it.
No.
No, I don't really appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to talk about roosters when we go under discussion.
I don't think he was.
That is the point at which they're brought up so that we can say, is that something the policy committee should look at?
But why do you only discuss issues at an agenda meeting? Why don't you discuss issues at a real public, at the regular?
That is a public meeting. That is a public meeting.
When you go to vote on it, that's when we would discuss.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
Okay.
People are misunderstanding what people are saying, and it's getting out of hand. And this is the reason why we need workshop meetings. Because we cannot come up here and have 3-hour meetings to try to get all the business done in this borough in one meeting and then somehow come out of this being nice and happy and sweet to each other when we're voting on things that we have different views on. Workshop meetings are where we work out the differences and try to come to a consensus.
And
this is not the place. This is the regular meeting of Borough Council. This is our meeting where we vote on the agenda that we bring up at our workshop meeting. And that's how it's been done.
Well,
and that's how
this is the only place we can discuss these things.
That's right. We're going to have them. I was asking for a consensus. But I don't even get the respect of getting a consensus. We're going to have workshop meetings starting in August. End of story. They will be on the calendar. Show up, don't discuss anything. I don't really care. But we're going to have workshop meetings. Wanted me to make the arbitrary decision, I've made it.
And the motion's on the table.
The motion's on the table. Virginia, roll call, please.
Yes. This is going to be 9K, correct? Just to make sure.
Yes.
What was
thank
it? What was the motion again? What am I
is the
voting?
motion?
About the advertising.
To advertise the ordinance.
Ordinance.
Motion was made, so it would be an action item, so it would be 9K.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Ms. Alonso?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherlock?
Yes.
Mr. Yeager?
No.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. Motion passes 6-1.
I think that's a good motion to pass.
I don't know what my agenda is. So does anybody else want to add anything to this already contentious evening? Is there anything else under borough officials?
I have some announcements.
You can make your announcements, ma'am.
Let me start with the library, please. The library opened its doors on June 1st. They're still suggesting masks at this time, and they still have curbside service if you need it. We have a pretty aggressive summer reading program that actually began today. And if you go to the website, you'll see a list of the summer programs. All of them are taking place in the park. We have the wildlife encounters, Ryan the Bugman. If you're a little child, I guess all these are good. Carnival of Animals. So all bugs and animals will be down there. So you can just check that on either the website of the borough or the library's website. I'd like to make mention that we had recently received a note from Karen Kane, who is resigning from the the EDC. So that will be, I guess, we'll put that up on our Facebook and so forth. And thank you to her time and effort. And then, of course, we had one of the vacancies for the EAC was Stephen Fowler. He recently passed away, so we appreciate the time he spent. He was very passionate about that. So I did go to, but I think it's kind of late, but I did go to an EV webinar with the TMA, and I mentioned to Ted that I would just give a brief of what the webinar was, but I think we can wait till next month on that. Also, just two things about the hazardous waste collection, which we are a part of, the borough and many municipalities are a part of. We pay money every year. The next one will be locally. It will be August 14th at the tech school. And there are restrictions of what you can and cannot put there, but again, that's a free event. And then we have free electronics recycling, which happens Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 2:30. There are quite a few things that they accept, so please take advantage of that. Also, I'd like to say, I love our new railroad signs. We had 2 incidences where the train was coming with no flares on the ground. And so I called the borough and John later got right on that. And now we have actual railroad crossing signs at Delmore and Pennsylvania Avenue. The chief had sent something to us a while back, and it's been sitting there for months now. And it's Directive 225 as it relates to police impoundment program. And I'm just wondering, I had some questions. I sent them to the chief. He answered them. I'm just wondering, can we put this on the agenda for next month, or what do you think?
Sure. Send me an email so I remember.
Okay.
And CC Virginia so it make sure it gets on the agenda.
Okay. I was Sure. I was contacted by Susan Taylor, who will be the outgoing director of the Friends of the Delaware Canal. She's been trying to retire for a couple of years, but next year they're going to have the 40th anniversary of the Canal Festival, and I'd really like to see Morrisville, be involved in it. We were a few years back. We actually sent we set up areas next to the theater. We had tents and so forth. And we actually wanted to possibly have some canoes launching from there. But it's not happening until next year, but we're on their list of who they'll contact when the events start to take place. I think that's, oh, I know. We talked about roosters. I know Helen talked about it and Bob just talked about it. I've mentioned it. There are regular calls. In looking at and Helen looked it up and said she didn't see anything about roosters in our animal ordinance. So I think we thought it was there, but it's ordinance number 889, and it mentions actually pot-bellied pigs, because that's really when we wrote it years ago, because we had problems with people had 300-pound pigs in their backyard. So I'd like to see that the ordinance committee, maybe we could get together and consider adding roosters to that, or amendment that roosters would not be allowed.
There's actually a bigger issue, because there was an ordinance that roosters were not allowed in town and it disappeared. So somebody in the Borough Hall, or I don't know, has to look up what happened to the old ordinances.
Well, it might, when we got codified, maybe it slipped.
I'm sorry. We checked them when we heard about the roosters, just to see, because we've had this issue in other municipalities, and generally they're not allowed. Because
right. We had an ordinance that it was.
We can't speak to that.
I know.
But looked at, didn't have it in there.
I understand.
Your ordinance can easily be amended to eliminate that.
Well, let me ask you, so when we were codified, and there were a lot of other ordinances in there that the borough has passed throughout the years in order to make the town better. They're just gone? Is that correct?
Obviously, I wasn't involved in I can just say, I don't know what the previous ordinance had. I don't know. I don't have it. We haven't really looked at that. We heard the question. We were concerned about it. We looked up the ordinance and it wasn't there. And I didn't go into searching, like what the history was. We just assumed it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised.
No, it wasn't there till up to, I think, 2015. Virginia.
Yes.
Do you guys have copies of old ordinances, like before it was wiped off the website?
Yes, we have every one that was ever done.
Okay, you know what? Then I'll come down this week and I'll take a look at it.
If you, Helen, if you don't mind, if you send an email, if there's others that you want also, it's easy. We could pull them. They're all right here. It's not a problem.
Okay. I'll send you an email, tell you what day I'm coming, so you're aware.
Yes, that way we can pull them and have them ready for you. It's not a problem.
That'd be great.
Well, while we were talking about roosters, and again, I would think that it would be an amendment to the 889, which mentions animals in the borough, but it sort of talks about pets. Are we considering or willing to put a cap on how many chickens someone can have?
I think we should look at everything.
I mean, we allow chickens, and I think that they should be allowed, but if it gets to a point where somebody has a dozen chickens, I think that might be...
Just like we would kind of frown upon 20 cats in one household, you would...
Well, yeah, I don't know how you get around that, though.
I mean, I don't know. Yes.
You can regulate livestock. You have that authority.
Okay.
As long as you're reasonable and whatever, which you always are. Yeah, you don't have a constitutional right to have like 400 chickens in your backyard. That is not a protected right.
Okay. I have one more thing, Mr. Parker. In January, February, we received, it was called a Model Alternative Energy Ordinance from the Bucks County Planning Commission. And I was hoping that when the ordinance committee might get together and we talk about roosters, we can talk about alternative energy using their model, which is really it's lengthy and it's very comprehensive, but we can pluck some things from it possibly. And actually, that's all I have.
Anyone else?
I just have something really quick. David's Distillery just opened up right there on Bridge Street where 21 Locks was going to be. I don't know the name of that building. Does anybody know? Or,
I don't know if that has a name.
what was it before? It was the,
Liquid, it was liquid air.
yeah, Lehigh,
Rubber.
Lehigh Rubber.
Works.
Lehigh Rubber Works. Very nice people. They made a fantastic dessert for us, and I hope that people start going in there and partaking in our new businesses coming to town.
Agreed. It almost looks like a museum in there, right? Doesn't it have a, no?
It's very nice in there.
Nicely done.
And the owners are extremely sweet.
All right. Anyone else?
I have something.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait. I got something real quick before we adjourn. Many people in Morrisville may have known him. He was a lifelong friend of mine, Steve Brooks, who I grew up in town with. He was a Morrisville cop at one point, moved on. His father, Mr. Brooks, Herb Brooks, was a crossing guard for quite some time. Anyone in town that knows Mr. Brooks, he was a really, really great guy. He passed away this past Saturday. So please keep the Brooks family in your prayers.
Thank you, Scott, for that. We actually gave him accommodation, I believe, on this borough a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was really into the veterans. I believe the service, it's an online streaming service. I believe it's tomorrow at 4:30. If you check the J. Allen Hooper website. So tomorrow at 4:30. But again, let's keep the family. Steve, the son, Steve, is a great guy, and his daughter-in-law, Sue Brooks. They're awesome people, and prayers would help. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's adjourned at 9:09.